Greetings. Welcome to Safe Space Talks, My Mastery. I'm Nigeria Anderson. I got Janine with me. Wave, Janine.
Hey,
And I
everybody.
got my sister Dana with me. Wave, Dana. Right.
Hey.
And we're here to talk about the postpartum period. Now, everybody know me now. I don't want no children. And probably after doing my research on this, I was like, whoo, Lord, thank you. But, God bless y'all. The postpartum period begins after delivery. Your body begins to just, go through some of its changes. But it really happens after your body returns to its pre pregnant state. So this period lasts between 6 to 8 weeks. During this time, many women experience many changes, both emotionally and physically. There are three stages of postpartum: acute phase, which comes 24 hours immediately after delivery, the subacute phase, which can last the 2 to 6 weeks, what I just mentioned, and that late phase, which sounded like PTSD to me, which
Mm.
can last 6 weeks to 6 months after delivery. Now, why does this happen? Uh, it's written, or I read, that hormone estrogens dramatically drop. Your thyroid glands may drop, which can cause and leave you feeling sluggish. But there's one thing I read about the 5-5-5 rule. Now, it was like 5 days in bed, 5 days on the bed, and 5 days near the bed. And for about 2 weeks is for you, after you've just given birth to this beautiful baby boy, baby girl, for you to kind of stay in your recovery period, which also includes no visitors. So, that's tough.
Mm.
But I kind of like the 5-5-5 rule, and I might add that to my own personal life, like 5 days in the bed, 5 days on the bed, 5 days near the bed
Near.
with no visitors. But one of the other things that happen after the 2 weeks you stay on your recovery, some of the symptoms include mood swings, crying spells, anxiety, difficulty sleeping, sadness, irritability. That my sister had the irritability.
Mm.
Feeling overwhelmed, reduced concentration, a change of your appetite, and difficulty bonding with your baby. And I've seen that in movies. I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that in real life, but man, that seems like, wow, how do you give birth to a baby and then it's difficult to bond with? That's like, whoa. And I also found out that there is a real connection between the mother and the father during pregnancy. Some fathers gain weight, their appetite change, and they can experience postpartum depression also. So they may start feeling sad and tired and overwhelmed and anxious, and they may need to speak to a health provider, or have someone they can talk to while their wife is pregnant, girlfriend, or you know, the significant partner who's having their baby. Now, either one of you can just jump in, let do that and come on in, and let's talk about postpartum and
Woo.
help some people.
I don't know. You better go first. My story is crazy.
Okay. I have a 14-year-old son.
Mhm.
So I had him when I was 31. I didn't really have any issues with him, but we got a nice little surprise, my husband and I, when I was 41 with our daughter Layla. So first we must have been in shock for about 3 months after finding out that I was actually pregnant, to actually accept it, like, Lord, for real?
Right.
Now?
Right.
Midlife. So we got past that. We started getting to the joy part, and okay, CJ gets to have a little sibling, and it was all good. We get to one of our early doctor's visits, and they're like, I don't know, some trouble with your blood work, and we need you to go for some genetic counseling. So we're like, is this because we're old? So we still were like, well, listen, we believe in God, we
Right.
praying,
Right.
everything's gonna be all good. And we get to the genetic counselor, and they're like, yeah, so about your results, uh, everything led to the baby possibly having Down syndrome.
Yeah.
So, and this is a safe space, right? I could be honest about what I've said. My life was, I have so much respect for people who have children with special needs, but I don't think I could do it. I'm like, I don't think I have that in me. I'm not built that way.
Right.
So one of the things I would always say growing up is, my mom had me at 38. She struggled. It was hard for her. I don't want kids when I'm older. CJ was it. We're done. So of course, all of this stuff started coming back to me. Oh no, wait, but this is what I said I couldn't do. Mm-hmm. And Lord, for real, you would do this to us? You know, I'm looking at it like, I wasn't looking at it as a blessing at the time. I was just like, oh, this is a struggle. This is a burden. So I had like a 97% chance of her having Down syndrome. And when we found that out, I never forget it. Me and my husband went straight to the church. We went straight to the altar. We laid out before God. Amen. And we just said, this is a very hard thing to hear. We feel like it might be a hard burden to bear, but if this is your plan for us, your will for us, help us to accept it and give us the strength.
Wow.
So even with praying that, I still, in the back of my mind, was like, but I know God could do anything. So she could defy the doctors when she comes out and, you know, it won't be a problem. I'm still thinking that, like, you know, faith-wise, God could do anything. He could turn around. Yeah. So fast forward to the pregnancy, I was at the doctor almost every week, high risk. She found out she had heart problems, found out that they couldn't find one of her kidneys. So this constant battle the whole time, I started having trouble bonding with her while I was carrying her because I'm just thinking about all the problems. Yeah. And so when she was born, they confirmed that she had Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't stop crying. I didn't necessarily feel like God failed me or anything like that, but I still felt like, but God, I always said this was not my desire. So now what do I do that, you know, this is the case. So that postpartum for me, I mean, honestly, I think sometimes I still deal with it. Layla's 3 years old. Right. For the first 3 months, I cried every day, nonstop. My mother would come, my sister would come. They were praying for me. They would have to take Layla. Sometimes I didn't even want to bond with her. She was there, and I was just like, you know, it was almost like I felt like, maybe did I have a defective baby? Did I do something? Like, it was just all this guilt, and it was terrible, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So praying, you know, talking to God, all of that included, I still mentally, emotionally, I was a wreck. And I want to say maybe around when she turned about 3 months, and, you know, I had to really, the Lord just, one day I sat down, I was like, but Lord, I can't understand why me? Why us? Why? I at this point in my life, I don't want to do this. And he said, but why not you?
Right, right.
And I had to shut up.
Right,
I was like, you know what, Lord, you're absolutely right. And then I started seeing how when people would find out, they were like, oh, I can't think of anybody better than you all. You have so much love. Right. I know that you're going to treat this baby right. I know that you're going to advocate. I know what you're going to do. And so I didn't want to hear it at the time because I'm like, but you don't understand the stress and the burden that we're dealing with. Right. But you know, so in hindsight, you know, everything's 2020. I'm like, I see it now. I get it now. And we have ended up becoming advocates. Right. One of our close friends ended up being diagnosed with a baby with Down syndrome, so we were able to minister, and we just been seeing the doors open and you know, and places to give our testimony. So I understand that now, but for that first year, can't tell me nothing.
Now let me ask you, when did you go through postpartum, like afterwards? Because it sounds like maybe, because I understand too, you can go through it while you're pregnant too. Mm-hmm. So did you go through it while you were pregnant and after you delivered?
No, I wouldn't say while I was pregnant. I think I was still in good spirits. Like I was pretty okay because my pregnancy wasn't terrible. It was just a lot of doctors.
Right,
But it was like once she was born, I just had nothing. You know, I wanted to nurse her because I was able to nurse CJ. I couldn't nurse her. It wasn't working. That added to my depression. And
so it was depression you was going through?
Yes, it was such a depression. And then the thing is, like, she had very, very low muscle tone. So just simple things like she couldn't nurse because her oral muscles weren't developed. So she couldn't latch.
Right.
But I didn't understand that then.
Right.
It's just like, what's wrong? Everything's wrong. That's how
Right.
I
Right.
look at it. And so I think my depression really started once she was here. And, the postpartum, and just went on for months.
Oh,
Mm. I don't look like I don't look like what I've been through, y'all. But I'm
none
52.
of us, none of us. But we
What?
could, we
I would
get,
never believe.
we could give God the
52,
glory.
and my baby was a surprise. Unplanned pregnancy at 40. In New York, single woman, professional woman, doing my thing. Um, the baby wasn't even her. The father wasn't even somebody that I had deep feelings for or loved. In fact, I came to know while I was pregnant that even though um, he was walking around undiagnosed, he was definitely mentally ill. And the best way to describe his personality is like Donald Trump. That's the living, breathing epitome of his personality. Very much a sociopath, very much a malignant narcissist. And so it was kind of like a rebound situation. And I was
Mhm.
kind of like, God, you're funny. Because I always said, and this is with the law of attraction, you attract what you fear most and what you think about most. And I always said, I'm never going to be anybody's baby mama.
Ah,
I was never going to be a single mom
right.
because my parents were married. Would if my father had lived, he would have been, they would have been married 50 years.
Wow.
So I'm a church girl, all of that, raised in the
Two
church,
parents.
went
Right.
to the right schools, right job. And that happened. And I was like, God, I did everything right. How did this happen?
Right.
How did this happen? But at 40, I figured like I wanted a family, not just a baby. I wanted a
Right.
family.
Right.
And when she came, when I heard the news, it was all kind of trials and tribulations because we are at 40, that's considered a geriatric
Sure, yeah.
pregnancy.
Right.
And so you are, and I had the same, I had the all the tests done, the blood work, and I didn't do the amniocentesis because was afraid of the risk of miscarriage. And in my 20s, I had miscarried twice.
Okay.
So my feeling was like, well, I may never be able to have a child.
Right.
And my plan was if I wasn't married by like 42 or so, I'd just adopt, you
Right.
know? But anyways, long story short, that situation, the whole relationship was 7 months.
Okay.
Didn't even last long enough for her to be for her to be born. And essentially, I put him out when I was 4 months pregnant because he tried to abuse me physically.
Right.
And it took 3 months for me to keep from having a miscarriage
Wow.
by being on bed rest.
Wow.
So when I had her, and on top, it was everything. It was like I had a doula. I was trying to do natural childbirth, and I was alone. I never even I never even talked to him from the time I put him out until maybe 7 days after she was born.
Mm.
And during that time in New York, we had an earthquake and a hurricane. And I was pregnant and there by myself the whole time.
Right.
So when I was trying to give birth, I had, trying to do the right thing, trying to get a doula, trying to have, her naturally. But, it didn't work out that way. I had to have an emergency C-section.
Mm-hmm.
So she was in distress. She had swallowed what's called meconium. So
Okay.
it's like all the waste and it had gotten her lungs and she wasn't progressing down the birth canal.
Right.
So it was like an emergency C-section or she was going to die.
Right. Right.
And so I had to like put all I was terrified
Right.
because
Right.
I've never had surgery even before. And
Oh.
this is major surgery.
Right.
And when I got into the hospital and after I had the surgery and she was in the NICU for like 3 days, nobody even told me like you need to be trying to pump your milk to get your milk up because it doesn't automatically come in with a C-section.
Oh.
So you actually have to while you're in the hospital and like I was in so much pain in the hospital
Right.
After having the C-section and all the trauma around the birth, when you talk about depression, I was depressed before I left the hospital. I was
Right.
depressed while I was pregnant. I was depressed before I left the hospital.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember like my milk didn't come in. I could never breastfeed her because
Right.
they fed her a bottle when she was a newborn in the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
she had already drank 4 months before 4 ounces before we were discharged.
Yeah.
And
She got
that's a lot for a newborn.
Right.
So I could never pump to meet her demand. I was taking milk thistle, all these vitamins, fenugreek, everything. My mom was my only support. And she came up and she was there with me in New York in my apartment. And, my mom is like the baby whisperer. She had, 5 kids or so.
Right.
And then when my cousins or a lot of family member would have babies, she was the one they would bring the babies to, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So sometimes my mom would have like us plus 5 other kids in the house, like 10 kids. So she
Right.
knew what to do. But me, it was like all the symptoms, like the no sleeping, the anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
She never, I couldn't put her in a crib, let her sleep. She was never a sleeper. Like some babies will sleep. She
Right.
only napped like
Oh,
every 20
every
minutes
yeah.
up until the time she didn't sleep through the night till 7 months.
Wow.
So I was on top of fatigued.
Right.
I was crying. I just broke down in front of my mother. I remember, let me back up. Even coming home from the hospital in Brooklyn, I said, God, what the heck did I do to my life?
Right. Right.
And I literally said, F my life.
Right. Right.
And I just had this baby. And I had told him, look, and he basically told me to have an abortion. He told me to go down the street and pull a trigger. Those were his exact words.
Right. Right.
And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I don't think I believe in that for me.
Right.
You don't have to be a part of it. I got this.
Right.
But you could be missing your blessing.
Right.
But don't worry. I got this.
Right. Right.
So I was prepared. A 40-something-year-old successful businesswoman, homeowner. I
Right.
had my stuff.
Right.
But the mental and emotional
Come on,
depression, the
Dana. Tell it.
loneliness,
Yeah. Tell
being
it.
alone during Christmas, being
Right.
alone. I had her right after New Year's Eve. Being
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
alone at the holidays, I couldn't travel because I was,
Right.
it was, a what do you call it, high risk pregnancy. They
Right.
had told me that she might have trisomy 13, which that's a lot of it's a mental and physical disability. And
Mhm.
I just stood on the word of the Lord. I said, Lord, you're funny. Now I'm pregnant, now by
Right.
this,
same.
now like,
Right. Right.
and she may have all this. I said, and the doctor said, well, what are you going to do if it is? I said, well, I'm still going to have her.
Right. Right.
I'm
Right.
still going to have her.
Yeah.
So I'm not even going to get this amniocentesis because I don't want to risk having a miscarriage. But at the end of the day, I'm going to have her. And then she came out and all I could see, y'all, was him.
Oh. Yeah.
Wow.
I looked at my baby and all I could see was him.
Wow.
Somebody who had given me
So
so
much.
much
Yeah.
trauma,
Yeah.
Wow.
so much angst, and so much fear. And it took me a long time because I just broke down and I was just crying because she
Yeah.
couldn't latch.
Right.
So they when they're trying to breastfeed, she wasn't getting enough. And she just, she was hungry all the time, but my nipples were bloody and
Oh
cracked and
boy, yes,
Right.
sore.
Yeah.
yes.
And I was tired and I was hurt. And the C-section hurt
Right.
and I
Mm-hmm.
could barely move. And it's like you said, that 555. I couldn't do the 555 because I'm a single mom.
Right. Right.
Single mom with no help.
Right.
Right.
So
Right. Ain't no
basically
bye
my
bye
mom
bye.
was there for like 5 weeks and then I came down to Maryland
Yeah.
and stayed with her for 5 weeks. But at the end of the day, I just remember saying, I remember she just looked at me like, toughen up. My mom is 80. So
Yeah.
back then she's
Yeah.
70, different
Yeah,
generation. Let's not
Right.
yeah,
talk
Right.
about
that's
Different
true.
postpartum
generation.
depression.
Right. Right.
That's true.
She was like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Like, get it
Get it
together.
together.
Like, she
Pull
was like,
yourself together.
and I'm here feeling like all these emotions, like, oh my God, I'm alone. Oh my God, I have to parent with this abusive person. Oh my God, like, what if she has, issues like
Right.
he has?
Right.
I can't provide for her. Like, I mean, I can't feed her. You just feel like a failure.
Yeah.
I was so depressed. So I had that, and I didn't bond with her. I don't think we really,
Man,
I
that is,
felt bonded to her till
yeah.
about 7 months,
Wow.
7 or 8 months.
Wow. Yeah,
I
that's
was all alone. And during the whole time, the only thing that really got me through it was prayer,
mm-hmm.
reading the Bible,
Mm-hmm.
meditating, believing and trusting. I said, God, I trust you. I trust you.
Come
Because I
on.
felt shame
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
being a single
Single
mom.
woman.
I
Yeah.
felt shame for bringing her into this situation. I felt guilt. I felt physical pain. I
Right.
felt emotional pain. I was so distressed.
Yes.
And I just remember when I went back to work, she was about 5 months old, and I had a choice to work in New York or Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, give me Maryland, because that's where my support system. He
Right.
wasn't coming around. He tried to take, he started a custody fight with me.
Oh my God.
Somebody who told me to kill the
Right.
baby,
Right.
and
No
who had seen her
way.
2 times in her whole life, tried to sue me for custody,
Lord Jesus.
starting at 4 years, at 4 months old.
Wow.
And I just remember going back to work, and I was on Fifth Avenue and 52nd or something like that. And I literally was standing on the street, and I just burst out crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I called my mom. I was like, Mom, I can't do this. I
Right.
don't know how. I can't do this. How
Right.
do people do it? How do you go to work? How do you leave your baby? How do you, just all
Right.
of it.
Right.
And
All of the, yeah.
I remember the pain and the distress. And she just said, just come on home.
Amen.
And I mean, and so it was like, it was trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a lot of trauma. And I remember, and other mothers will shame you too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I went to
That's
lunch with, like, and the interesting thing was, I had a lot of friends that were having babies between 38 and 42.
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm.
We were all pregnant, like within 5 and 6 months of each other. And I remember going to lunch with, some of the moms and our new babies who were under 5 months old. And I just looked horrible. And I made a kind of joke. I said, I'm waiting for the joy of motherhood to start.
Right.
And one of the mothers was like, oh my God, how could you say that? That's so horrible. And we're all sitting at the table with our babies, and they're all laughing and smiling. I'm just kind of there, like,
Uh-huh. I've been there.
and wanting to cry and wanting to give up. And, like, and they all had their partners, either their husbands or their
Right.
partners.
Right.
And she snapped a picture of me, and she was like, everybody's smiling, but look at you. And I'm
Unbelievable.
like, damn, there's no compassion,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like,
It's no.
I had somebody who tried to beat me. You know
Right.
what I mean? I had to
Right.
put out, he's nuts right now. He's suing me. He's abusing me still emotionally.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
not bonding with my baby. She's not eating right. I'm feeling like a failure. The child even rolled out of the bed at 7 weeks old. Who does that? She turned over.
What?
I
She
did that.
turned over.
I did that.
And I
You
had her
do.
in a
My dad was like,
in a
he couldn't believe it.
little contraption. I forget what it called, little bed with little
Yeah.
arms on it. I go in the kitchen to wash her bottle, and this child, I hear splat on the floor, and I'm
Oh
like,
my.
oh my God, seven
Lord.
weeks. I'm like, I'm a failure. Oh my
But
God. So I'm rushing to the
oh,
doctor,
Right. Right.
So
Right.
it was just, I'm telling you all, I think, like, and that's why I say, like, my faith today is so
Come
strong, because
on,
I think that's
girl.
the
Yeah.
only thing that
That
really
kept.
got me through. It was like,
yeah.
God,
He
you
is
must
the
have a meaning.
keeper.
You must have purpose. This
Amen.
child is meant to be here. She's going to change the world. And I mean, literally, I fought for her protection against her father from the time she was 4 months to the time we were in court, to the time
Wow.
she was 7. And I spent $200,000 trying to prevent him from harming her or
Right.
getting her. But there's no court in the land that believes, if a black man especially is coming to the court and fighting for the child, there's no way they're going to block that.
Right.
And if you can't prove
Right.
the distress or the abuse, they're looking at you skeptically,
Mm-hmm.
right? And after and so imagine I'm having to overcome
Right.
the stress of being the provider while I'm being financially sued,
Right.
moving, trying to bond with my child,
Right. Right.
do the best I can for her. And she coming home after a weekend with him telling me, Daddy said you're a fat ass bitch.
Right.
and you
Right.
have to say please and thank you. I'm sorry, but I'm just being
No,
real.
no,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah,
it
yeah,
No,
yeah.
was.
No, come on.
I'm
And
just,
No, come
how
long
could
on.
you
story
say that
short,
to your child? That just floors
she
me.
had to keep going. The court basically said if you don't send her, and uh, if you don't send her, um, you'll lose custody and you'll go to jail.
What?
And essentially, it did not change till something happened. And in 2019, CPS in New York took her from his custody,
Thank God.
and
Wow.
she hasn't seen him since. But I'm saying it's like all of that. Like
Yeah,
you're 40, geriatric pregnancy.
that's a lot.
It could be
Yeah.
the baby could be defective. You're having like difficulty. It's a high risk pregnancy. I had to take progesterone pills to keep from miscarrying.
Wow.
Right. Right.
Um, laying, being bedridden, and then you just feel like you don't have control.
Right. Right.
That's a big one.
This little
Right.
person is here in your life, and people, all you see in media is these beautiful stories of this
I
beautiful
know. That's why
baby and
we
this
do what
beautiful
we do here.
family, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
And no,
they don't
I
talk
can't
about
hear
the
you.
real part.
But
Like,
yeah, so it was really a lot to overcome. And, thank God for my mom being the baby whisperer that she is.
yeah.
But I'll tell you, when I had to go back to work full time, and I thank God I had my mother to watch my child. She watched her from the time she was 5 months till about 13 months.
Oh wow, that's great.
That was a relief for me.
Right.
Hmm.
I wasn't built to be a stay at home mom. I had going to work was a reprieve.
Hmm.
Right.
I mean, that makes sense.
That's my story. But I think,
Man.
it's just, I think I didn't realize till much later that it was postpartum.
Right. You don't
It
realize
was
it was.
all the stress of everything that was
Yeah.
happening, but the postpartum exacerbated it. So I think,
It's.
let me
Oh,
see if I
yeah.
can.
Just bring
Uh-oh.
your
I think we
camera.
lost them.
It's okay. She'll come back.
Oh,
Janine, my God.
yeah.
After all of what she said, I do have a question. Did they mention postpartum to you when you were in the hospital? I wanted to ask, did they even say anything like this could happen? Because we're black women, so I want to know.
Oh no, and that's what.
No warning.
Are
Oh,
you
it was.
serious? I was afraid y'all was gonna say that. No, the same thing happened. They didn't tell you.
Yeah. You know what I remember the most? How much the medical staff in the beginning was like, "Are you sure you want to go through with this?"
Mm,
Most parents when they're faced with your decisions, they choose to terminate it. They just kept.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think those were the hardest parts of the pregnancy for me because
yeah,
we were like, that's not an option for us. We
right.
had said, if God gave us this, this is what it is.
Right.
We're gonna go through it. But are you sure? Because this is the last possibility. This is the last time. And we were like, could you stop saying that? Because we said no. Like,
Right.
Right. No
so
means
that
no.
made it. Yeah, but they would tell us that, but they weren't telling us the other things that they could have been helping us along. It's just like
So
they kind of gave us a sentence like, "Well, you're gonna have a baby that's gonna have issues," and I cried for days because I was
right.
just like, "Oh, am I wrong for bringing this child here?" And and I started questioning. It was crazy.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you another question. How women and especially black women are mistreated in the medical field. They're misdiagnosed. That's not no real pain. That doesn't. Why are you saying this hurts?
Mm,
We can't find nothing.
Mhm.
We've heard the word postpartum, and I'm so glad we not speaking with Janine. I'm so glad that we we're having this discussion. It's very powerful, and I know for sure my main goal always is to help someone to always know they are not by themselves. And
Yes.
so with your testimonies, and I love that we're Christians, we all been through a lot, and please look at this screen, because when you're looking at us, you're looking at pure victory, and you're looking
Mhm.
at that God's word is his word. And if you're willing to trust, and that's my favorite line, if you're willing to believe, if you're willing to be steadfast and allow God to be God, that he will bring you through. But
Yes.
you started going through these feelings and you went to the doctor to share. Did they prescribe anything? Not for
No.
you? No?
Well, Layla was born during literally COVID. She
Oh
was
my
she was born
goodness.
on March 11th, and everything got shut down the
Shut-
next week.
Oh, 2 days
So
later.
we just made it home
Yeah.
before everything got shut down. So you talking about just
Oh,
isolation?
so you just
That made
really
it
had to
worse.
deal with it.
Want to talk to anybody? Wasn't really seeing anybody. It was only like for her to get immunization or things like that. Very
Right.
important doctor's appointments. Other than that, we were in the house.
Did you go and say, listen, I'm struggling here? And did they give you any medication or any encouragement? Or did you go to therapy for your own self or have, how did you manage?
Oh.
You you with us? Because we don't have you on screen. You'll come right back.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned therapy. I wish I would have done therapy. I think I would have had probably it wouldn't have taken me so long maybe to just
Right.
talk about how I felt.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I needed therapy because I needed therapy. I remember calling my friend, and I'm not talking about because of post traumatic. I mean postpartum, but post traumatic stress. I woke
Right.
up like 2:30 in the morning, and I called my friend, and I'm sure Janine and Dana, if you ever get a call from me at 2 or 3 in the morning, y'all know something
Uh-huh.
is
Uh,
wrong. So
right.
she picks up the phone and she's like, Nigeria, like just spill it. What's going? And I'm laying in my bed like I'm at the hospital, but I was at home. I don't know what's going on. And she was
Right.
like, I will be there in the morning. And when I say at 6 o'clock, so we're talking 2:30, 3:30, 4:30, 5:30, 6 o'clock, she's ringing my bell,
Wow.
like, girl,
Yes.
okay, I'm here,
Yes.
what we're doing. And I
Yes.
think I need to see somebody. She was like, if you want me to go with you, I'll go with you. And,
Yes.
again, just having a mental health background, I'm like, the joke when you're staff is don't become the client.
How
Right.
you know, and I'm
about
over here like, I'm the client. Oh my God, I'm the client, and it was like a
yeah,
horrible moment
I can
of, just what is happening to me. And
my God.
so, that's just my little 2 cents. No medication. How did you just had to bear the brunt and just go through it by yourself?
I'm
Or did
sorry.
you get
Yeah.
therapy?
Yeah. Yeah. I just, so this is the thing. I did everything, before the baby came, like, bed rest for 3 months. I even went to parenting classes, like, that the hospital,
Right,
they teach you, how to swaddle the baby,
right.
Yeah.
diaper changes, the basics. Because, I'm not a parent. And I went and did all that by myself. I even did, like, I think maybe Lamaze by myself.
Yeah.
Stupid. But, but after the baby came, I had a doula. I had a doula, a night doula, a black lady, Keisha King, and she was a godsend, in
Amen.
between, my mom being there, and she was able, because she was very experienced. She gave me some information. But as far as going to the doctors, I would go to the pediatrician and I would just be frantic. Anxiety. Is this normal? Is this normal? Is this normal? Like, you
Right.
know what I mean? And they weren't really soothing. They weren't really reassuring.
Yep.
And didn't have a caregiver of my, I wasn't going to my caregiver or my OBGYN afterwards and really saying, I just thought I was supposed to be that way. I was supposed to be
Oh,
tired. I
no.
was supposed to be
Yeah.
tired. I was supposed to be overwhelmed. This is what it was. So I didn't frankly talk about it with them. And I'll tell you, I didn't even start seeing a therapist probably until she was about 4.
Wow.
And at that point, and you know why? And some incidents had happened with her dad, and I couldn't get the visitation changed. And some the lawyers told me, like, the only thing you could do is put her in therapy because they're court reported, mandated reporters.
Right.
And so when she started going to therapy, I kind of started going to therapy.
Oh,
Yeah.
But
okay.
it was beyond that, like, postpartum thing. I just didn't realize, like I said, I don't think I realized till she was like 3 or 4 that I actually all of that that I went through was actually postpartum, and it wasn't just the normal course
Right.
of what happens. And I do feel like I was alone and not really given a lot of resources and information,
Right.
um other than that night doula coming, and she just, talking me through a lot of things,
Yeah.
helping me realize.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so we're gonna
Yes.
end this. I've learned so much, and I'm just
Mhm.
like, yeah, I can't even imagine. But these young girls, the reason why I really did it, these young girls, he cute, I want to have his baby, and I want to be a mother. That, like, I love what you said, Dana. On TV it looks glamorous, it looks
Mhm.
easy smeezy. They got
Mhm.
pampers and bottles and everything. No one's talking about the expense,
Yep.
right? No one's talking about the education. No
Mm-mm.
one's talking about the faith.
Yes.
Your child need to have grow up with a faith. Okay.
The
um
trauma to your body,
yeah,
like,
no one's talking about who's going to babysit, you know no one's
All of
talking. And so even with that, even as married couples, those are topics you need to talk about. you know
yeah.
who
mhm,
finances, right?
Mhm.
Babies are not free. Okay.
Right.
They
I-
cost. They got to go to the doctor, they got to get their shot. So do you have insurance, to
yes.
cover the cost? And
Yes.
so I hope me and my sisters blessed you. And to anybody considering having a baby, you know, listen to this video. So share it if you know some
Mhm.
pregnant friends or some friends who want to get pregnant, to really sit down and consider with that person that you plan on having a baby with. Like, there's that list, the finances, the education, the faith, who's babysitting, and the shared duties. Married,
Yes.
how to, your husband has to play a role. So, talk about
Yeah.
his role in this situation.
The crazy part is our schedules are so opposite. So it's difficult to always be together at the same time. So a lot of times I'm with her a certain part of the day, he's with her a certain part of the day, and we have to try to schedule appointments when we can together
Right.
because Layla is not the easiest. Like, she doesn't like doctors, she doesn't like people poking and prodding her. So sometimes I can't even control her. So
Right.
I need there to kind of help hold her down and things
Right.
like that. So we do our best to try to make it work, but it's not easy. And I do know why the statistics are so high with a special needs child, that parents end up not being able to stay together because financially, emotionally, mentally, it's draining. It's a lot.
It is a
mhm.
lot.
So,
It is.
Didn't have any financial support at all from her
Right.
dad.
Right.
And I remember trying to do it, trying to stay, and just to have the nanny cost me $600 a week. And
that,
I was, I had left my well-paying job and was kind of like, starting
Yeah.
over. And it was just like, oh my God, I see why some people, if you have two parents, one has like a high power gig and one
Right.
maybe has a little more normal, or, not as busy,
Right.
because you got to be present. So your whole life changed.
I
Like,
love it.
you
I
you know
love
my
it.
whole life changed when I came here. I have worked, it was the hardest thing, aftercare, before care, trying to commute to
yeah,
Yeah.
all the expenses, and it was more money to have a baby here than it was
wow,
in New York, because I had to consider commuting
Right.
hour and a half in aftercare and before care. And oh my gosh, it's just like, I don't know, that's what I'm saying, God truly did it for me.
yeah,
Jehovah Jireh. He was a provider. I mean, the child is never wanted for anything. But I
beautiful,
mean, thank God I had my mom to care for her at least that amount of time, because I couldn't afford the child care on my own.
right,
Right.
Could not do it. Not when she was that little. It was just it was so expensive. I'm like, it's like a mortgage for some people.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you.
You know, I'm not in the system, so I can't qualify for anything.
And
No help.
or
No help.
you end up making too much to meet the
Yeah.
qualifications. They say,
Right.
"Oh, but you make too much," and like a
Yeah.
dollar over. You may make
Yeah.
a dollar or a quarter over, and it disqualifies you.
And I
Yeah.
was like, I can't. I was like, how do people do this? And
Yeah,
that's, you know what, I broke down. And I mean, honestly, I had to change my life. I've, had like 4 or 5 jobs since I moved to Maryland, but I found one that was the most flexible for me in the last 3 or 4 years. I work totally from home, and I
good.
can't go back to an office. Now she's more independent,
Right.
but I work from home. I had to find something that was going to be flexible with me with this young one so I could be present and not have to spend as much as I did in childcare.
I
I
get that.
love it. Being present for your child, and the
Yeah.
expenses, and it's all cost. So thank you guys for listening. Um, Make sure you continue to watch us every Wednesday at 12 noon, and we'll talk to you again later.
Thank you, Nye.
You're
Nice to
welcome. You're welcome.